Okay, so hello to all of the seekers. Tonight is really great. Like I was just telling you, Halli, I'm so thankful that you are here and sharing this with us. I'm sure I'm not the only one who could really use this tonight, but for many of us here in the Seeker Circle, we're very familiar with you. You, like so many, are just a beautiful contributor and very thankful to have you here. But there are a lot of new members in the group as well. So I would like to just take a moment to introduce you. And if you could share with everyone what you do, what your work is about.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. I am today calling myself, I go through all sorts of different ways of characterizing my work, but today I'm calling myself a transition coach, a meditation coach, and a creativity coach. So the idea is that I really help people work through challenging times in their lives and help them to take that challenging time and turn it into growth and into the next iteration of the best version of who you can be.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Yoga teacher. So that's the other piece that kind of underpins all of that.
So you also teach yoga and meditation as well. And I know that you're going to be sharing with us tonight meditation, calling it Journey on the Breath. And I would like to know if you could just share with us a little bit about that, because, you know, like we discussed the first time we all got to meet you, you did come on Reiki Radio and had a beautiful conversation about meditation and your personal journey to healing. So anyone who missed that, you can go in the archives and catch that episode with Halli. But can you share with us the difference or the significance about meditation with focus on the breath like we're going to do tonight?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a whole vast array of ways to meditate. This is one particular offering that I give, and it actually comes from the yogic tradition. And just a quick context. So I took about 5 years at the beginning of my journey and studied Iyengar yoga. And I don't ever remember a mention of breath, even though there was meditation going on. Mm-hmm. And then I was introduced to Kundalini yoga. And it was in Kundalini that I learned that breath could be used as a way to direct energy. And that's a very yogic idea when you look at the tantric history of yoga, which was really about finding a way into making the body a gateway into consciousness. So that's very much about what I offer with meditation, where breath is the doorway into another way of being. So the significance of the breath here is that it's used as an anchor for the mind in order to, first of all, facilitate focus and concentration. And then second of all, to open that doorway into more presence and true self. You just hear that my laundry is done.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so being able to come back to the breath when you're distracted by your laundry noise.
Well, that's a beautiful way of describing it. I like that you speak about how it helps us to anchor into the body, but there was another way you just phrased it. I can't remember the exact way that you said it, but really looking at how the body supports us as this vehicle into accessing other states of consciousness. And I don't think a lot of people consider their bodies to have that much significance, I guess you would say, in this realm, especially because there's a lot of focus on other aspects and oftentimes forgetting the importance and significance of the body and the breath and this vessel as a whole. So I'm glad that you point that out.
Yeah, you know, we are temporal beings and physical corporeal beings, as well as being spiritual beings. And I think a lot of times we feel like we have to choose one over the other. And the idea about yoga is bringing those pieces together so that we're both corporeal and spiritual and transcendent at the same time. And that's the idea of creating, you know, like connecting heaven and earth, right? And we're the bridge in between them. So breath, I think, because it's been with us since the very first moment on this plane, and then it's there with us until the very last moment that we're on the physical plane, it has this incredible ability to connect us to the truth of who we are, because it's simple and it's profound simultaneously.
Again, I mean, that the way that you're describing all of this and the way that you're sharing it does. I mean, I think it highlights the significance of what we tend to overlook. I mean, because we breathe without thinking about it, it's interesting to then learn how to become more aware of this function that we typically really just don't think about. I want to take this out and clicking on the microphone.
Yeah, right. And that's I think the brilliant thing about it is that I feel like a lot of times when we're trying to work through our issues or we're trying to grow, we can feel like we need to look for something outside of ourselves, and something that might cost a lot of money, or we have to get the right expertise, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing about the breath is that it's our breath. It's unique, and it comes one breath at a time. And every breath is an opportunity to become more aware of being us.
Yes.
Right? So it has this very unique and personal way of being us that has nothing to do with anything outside of us.
That is beautiful. So I want to, before we get into the actual meditation, I just want to say hello to everyone who's watching. And if you have any questions for Halli, feel free to type it. I will relay it to her. And Joshua says hello. So
Hey,
hello.
Joshua. Woo-hoo.
Yes. Before we do get into this, I want to know, is there anything we should do in these spaces that we're in right now to prepare ourselves for this guided journey that we're going to take?
Yes, and before we move into that, I just want to say, since I've seen so many of your videos, if I feel like I know you, so it's just really nice to be able to speak to you personally, and I can see your faces in my mind. So hello to all of you. It's really fun to be here with you.
I know, I love this group.
And to prepare for the meditation, the idea is we want to eliminate as many distractions as possible. So I'm going to invite you to not just mute your phone, but actually turn it off to kind of take it out of the scenario. Unless, of course, you're watching us on your phone. That would be dumb. If you're on your computer, you could put your phone aside. But maybe turn off notifications so that you can be really focused. And make yourself really comfortable. So sometimes the body being uncomfortable can be another distraction. So to just do whatever you can to become really comfortable so that you can be absorbed in the experience.
Beautiful. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my video off and mute myself and just let you take it away. And I will come back to rejoin you at the end of our experience.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So let's move into a journey of the breath. And I really would like you to connect with your breath being one thing that is exclusively yours, and have some idea of being kind of protective and possessive even of this breath as we move into this experience. I think it'll help you connect to a sense of real love and truth about who you are, and help you to dive more deeply into that experience of oneness and uniqueness at the same time. So I'm going to invite you now to sit back or lie down. You can also lie down if you'd like, and let your eyes close. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, then let me just have you kind of draw the eyes down so that the gaze is not looking around, and let the gaze just go soft. I'm going to close my eyes though. And now just take a moment to acknowledge any sounds that are around you. There's something magical about acknowledging what's in our presence so that we don't have to be distracted by it. So especially if there's noise outside or dogs barking or the refrigerator running, see if you can just acknowledge and let all of the sound come in as biological feedback. So no stories, no identifying, no thinking about what you hear. Just let yourself listen, acknowledging. And then bring your attention to whatever surface you're resting on. And let your whole body really relax and rest into that surface. And imagine that this is kind of a surrender. And as you're doing this, very intentionally shift from what's outside of you and shift into what's happening inside of you. So take a moment just to kind of scan your body now. And again, acknowledging. So if there's anything that's uncomfortable that perhaps you could do something about just by shifting your weight. Maybe you could drop your shoulders away from your ears if you've got tension there. See if you can just take a few moments to manage any tension or discomfort you're aware of. And let go a little bit more, surrendering into your seat or into your resting place. Looking inside non-judgmentally from a place of watchfulness and curiosity. And now scan your body again and notice what's there besides discomfort. You know, discomfort and pain can be very engaging and the mind can fixate on it. What we want to do here is to allow ourselves to be non-dualistic so we can allow things to exist simultaneously, both discomfort and aliveness at the same time. So maybe go through your body now and notice any sense of aliveness, coexisting. This is a sense of sensation. Sensing sensation can be energy, warmth, a buzz, a ping, all sorts of sensation available for you to notice. And allow the noticing to encompass not just the inside of the body, but also the outside of the body. So feeling yourself front to back, side to side, top to bottom, inside and outside, and feeling the holistic experience of your physical being resting on this surface and into this surface. And then tune in to your breath and just notice the breath for the moment. See if you can avoid changing it, but just notice it for the moment. Notice where the breath is registering. Where are you experiencing the breath in your body? Where do you feel it? Let yourself pay attention to your breath. Because the breath is automatic, it's easy to not pay attention to the breath. It's also challenging to pay attention to the breath because of that. The mind wants to wander. So don't worry. If you notice that your mind is wandering, let your breath be the anchor that draws you back to this moment of experiencing the breath in your body. Experiencing the breath in your body. And you might have noticed that even just by paying attention to the breath, that the breath has changed. Maybe it's gotten a little deeper, a little calmer. Just watching your breath. Be curious. Feel the breath flowing in and flowing out. And I'll invite you for this moment, for the time being, and for the purpose of this meditation, to breathe in and out through your nose. Now see if you can expand your awareness a bit and feel your breath and your body. Now, of course, your breath can't happen without your body. So there's an interplay always going on, an exchange between the body and the breath. Every cell in your body participates in respiration. Each cell takes in oxygen and expels carbon dioxide. So that's the science. More than that, your breath is your connection to this mortal life. It's also your connection beyond this life. While in this life, also beyond this life. So seeing if you can just tune into an exchange with the body and the breath. And now, in a particularly yogic way, we're going to begin directing the breath. So the idea of directing the breath is to increase aliveness, so your connection to life force. The word we use in yogic philosophy is prana, and it means life force. And that life force is brought into the body through the breath. So breathing in and out through your nose will actually trigger the relaxation response in the brain. So generally, almost every breath, save for two that I know, in yogic practice, happens in and out through the nose in order to trigger that relaxation response. So breathing through the nose as you take the breath in, take it down into your belly first. And then see if you can let the breath brim into the lower ribs and then all the way up into the lungs. And experience that sense of brimming with breath. And then as you exhale, slowly release the breath from the lungs, from the rib cage, letting the rib cage sink down and the navel gently moving in to help you pour the breath out. So letting the inhalation and the exhalation beginning to equalize. A lot of us find it easier to inhale than we do to exhale. That exhalation helps actually to trigger the relaxation response even more and to engage your diaphragm. Most of us don't use our diaphragm in a skillful way. So that's what we're working on here. So using a bit of metaphor to help you experience breathing in this way. It's called the Dirga breath, which just means deep yogic breath. So the idea is your breath is like water that you're pouring into the jar, and the jar is your torso. And so you pour the water of your breath down into your belly and let that fill. And then keep brimming to the top of the jar here at your collarbone. And then as you exhale, you start to pour the breath out. So you pour it from the top, down to the center, down to the bottom, down to the belly until you're empty of breath. So work with that here several times in and out, and experiencing your breath in a three-dimensional way. So what I mean by that is your rib cage is not just in the front of you, but it's in the back of you. And your belly is actually connected to the side body and to the back. They're connected by connective tissue, quite literally. So when you're breathing into the belly, see if you can breathe into the sides and the back. And then as you're breathing into the rib cage, breathe into the rib cage all the way around you, your entire torso. And likewise, letting the breath release in that three-dimensional way. So letting the breath be deliberate and conscious, focusing your attention for this moment on your breath in your body. And let yourself feel the sensations. Let go of any story, thoughts, judgment, or assessments about how you're doing. See if you can let all of that just fall away and focus all of this, the attention on the sensation of your breath flowing into your body, into this open vessel, and then flowing out. Beginning to connect with this sensation of expanding as you breathe in. And this sensation of release and surrender as you breathe out. You may become aware of tension that creeps in. Most of us have habits of tension. And this is one thing, another wonderful benefit of a breath meditation is it helps you start to unpack those habits. You become aware as you're paying attention. So if you notice that some tension crept in, here's another way of directing the focus of your breath or directing energy. And that is to feel the tension. So that's the acknowledgement piece of this. Sending the energy with your imaginations and your focus to that area with this idea that you're expanding it with your breath. And then as you're exhaling, you're, with your will, letting go of the tension. So that's surrender once again. So a nice way of thinking about this is that you're drawing energy into you as you breathe in. And then as you're breathing out, you're letting go of things that don't serve you. Maybe the wrong kind of energy or unproductive energy to stay out of dualism. So directing focus, if you find that tension crept in, and then imagining yourself coming back to this central focus of the breath in your body. And so we want to just keep eliminating obstacles that get into the way of this relaxed breathing state, where we become essentially suspended in the infinite breath of life. Each inhalation is an opportunity to expand. And each exhalation is an opportunity to let go. Letting yourself be simple and experiential, moving willingly, openly, open-handedly into the present moment, which exists inside you, through your body, through your breath. Now, to begin bringing this meditation to a close, I invite you now to let your next breath be the deepest breath you've taken yet today. See how much space inside you can fill as you breathe in that greedy, lusty breath. And then exhaling, being willing to press it all out, letting all of that negative energy go, distracted thoughts, things that are not you, distracted by the ego. And then take one more breath just to integrate, to feel again that sense of aliveness, that life force that is always present and available for you to anchor to at your center, at the core of your truest self. And then allowing the attention to again expand outwards. So once again, feeling your body on your resting place, in your resting place. So feeling yourself in your environment. And expanding further to then register the sounds around you, opening further to your environment. And then if you would like to, let your eyes open and gently looking around the room, seeing where you are, and see if you can maintain this sense of being inside while also experiencing the outside. And feel that link now. So the way that your breath and your body are always in an exchange, see if you can now see how that exchange happens with your environment. And take a few breaths here and feel that connection of being anchored inside your truest self. Wonderful. I hope you'll let me know how you're feeling. Yolanda, are you there with us? You can help funnel some of these ideas and comments. Are you with us? Hello, my darling.
That was so beautiful, Halli. It's interesting because I had to keep reminding myself not to cling to certain things you were saying so I could just stay in the experience. But how could I best say? Well, one of the things that's coming to mind now that's striking me the most is there was a part where you're talking about like pouring into. And as I was watching my breath or allowing myself to experience and feel my breath that way, because I have never heard it described that way, the pouring into. I mean, that was so powerful for me. Like, it felt very grounding, and it felt like coming into myself in a way very different than I can describe, feeling before.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, and the chat room too, on the page we have, that was wonderful. Yeah, and if you want to share, like, describe anything that may have come up for you,
Yeah, I'd love
some
to hear
description
that.
around that feeling, and also if you have any questions for Halli while we have her here. And speaking of, I want to also let anyone know who is listening to this in the recording. Also, feel free to post your questions or what your experience was, because Halli, she's a beautiful soul, as I'm sure many of you know right now or already. And I know she will be very responsive. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that was really a beautiful journey. But there were so many different things that you said. I remember one of the things you said, brimming with the breath. And I was like, oh, yes, it just feeling it. You know what came to mind at one point? It felt like part of your guidance and description was acknowledging our dualistic nature, but at the same time, like, following up with, okay, now dissolve that. Acknowledge it, now dissolve that. Acknowledge is like, yes, the
Yeah. Oh, that's
duality exists, but
that's
then,
exactly it.
yeah, that was really, really beautiful.
Oh, I'm so glad. And you did a great job of contextualizing it for us, your experience and being able to really get at the essence of the power of this kind of a practice.
Yeah, and that was another thing too, and I'm going to read this comment too as well, is at the very beginning, what part? Oh, it was the part where you said, I loved that you acknowledged if people weren't comfortable with closing their eyes, just to soften the eyes. And something in the way of your guidance in the beginning too reminded me very much of some Buddhist practices and meditation that I had learned before too. But I guess, how could I describe the way that you guided us through that? It really highlighted experiencing the self. That's how
Oh,
you bet,
yes.
like, really experiencing the self. I'm sorry, I'm still like, I'm coming back, but that was really beautiful.
Yeah, and can I speak to that before you read the
Yes,
comment?
yes.
Because again, you're doing a beautiful job at articulating for us the quintessential nature of this kind of practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yogic in its foundation. And what I mean by that is that the ancient practice of yoga, the way that it was for a good 5,000 years before it became Americanized and a trendy workout.
Right.
The ancient practice of yoga was about self-realization. It was about self-actualization, so that we could see that even though we are mortal beings, we're always connected to, in yoga we call it the ocean of Brahman. And Brahman later became the name of a god, but in the beginning it was just the ocean of consciousness. So the ocean of consciousness that we can always dip into. If you think about a dolphin taking a jump into the air and then diving in.
Yeah.
So those moments of being in the air is really the mortal life, when we are tied to an ego. And then we get to dive back in, and that's when we're once again one with spirit. And we get to experience that every time we breathe, if we're paying attention.
And that is so beautiful, because hearing you give that description as well, yeah, I mean, it really does. Again, it feels like a moment of experiencing the true self, like that true essence of who we are, beyond, the labels, the titles, the thoughts of this, of that. And again, it was very beautiful that you guided us to acknowledge these things and not try to push and not try to, to acknowledge. But I think that also created a lot more ease in allowing the experience to happen, because you weren't I guess the best way to say it, it's not like you were trying to turn off any layer of our experience. You just kept bringing us back to acknowledging like the core essence of it, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, that was so good. I'm glad we have it recorded, because now we can all go back to it anytime.
Yeah, me too.
That was beautiful, Halli. And thank you so much for this. I want to read this comment. It says, during the meditation, I started to hear the sound of water. I realized it was my breath.
Ooh, that just gave me chills. That's fantastic.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, and the reality is we're 75% water. We are water.
Right.
So I feel like that metaphor really works for us, again, to connect with our essential nature as physical and spiritual beings simultaneously. What isn't water? What constituent on earth doesn't have water?
Right. And I wanted to ask too, while you're here in the chat room, can you share, do you notice or describe how you feel now, like now on the other side of that? Because what's interesting is how I was telling you in the beginning, like, oh, Halli, I really need this. Like, I really felt sluggish. It's been a rough 24 hours rest-wise. And I feel very rejuvenated, and I feel good, and I felt very kind of sluggish earlier. I feel refreshed.
Yeah, aliveness.
Yes, that's one of the words you used. And I was like, oh, yes, it's interesting how the description and how you explained things in the journey, it really gave a lot of depth to the experience.
Nice.
That was really, really beautiful. Let's see, I also like, this is in the comments, I also like the idea of 3D breathing. When I started breathing into the back and sides, I felt a lot of my body's physical and mental tension started to disappear.
Oof, yes.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one.
Exactly. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That struck me, the physical and mental tension.
Wow. Yeah, they're connected. They're
connected. Let's see. I feel lighter and my mind is clearer. Oh,
these are great experiences. Nice.
The gift you gave us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's what I do.
Yes. So I want to share that with everyone while we're here as well, because I know at the beginning you told us that you do coaching to help people, kind of get on their path and gain some clarity in these things. And I know that meditation is a big part of your work, but can you share that aspect of your work as well? People who may have difficulty with meditation, do they come to you to learn how to cultivate their own practice? How does that fit into your work?
Yeah, let me describe 2 programs I have right now that I really love offering them, because they're really the programs I wish I'd had 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's been through a lot of experimentation. I call myself a psychonaut. Huh? So, someone who really wants to know the nature of things. Right. And I wanted to know the nature of my suffering. And so it kept me going and diving and diving. And so now it's been birthed into this program that is a direct, what's the word? Like the fruit of my labor, if you will.
Yeah.
So I have 2 programs. One is a 9-week program. Another one is a 12-week program. Both of them share the foundation in building a sustainable daily meditation practice that's very much focused on the exercise that we did today, with the awareness and the experience of self helps us to ground in the true self, mm-hmm. ground in being of the true self. So the 9-week program is called Slow Down, Tune In. And the whole focus is about turning away from the outside world so we can give ourselves the attention that we need to tune into that internal voice and wisdom. With the Love Yourself Now program, there's a lot more involved. There's email support in between. And there are more resources that are added and advanced practices that are all focused on really changing the relationship with the ego and the inner critic that tells us that we don't measure up, whatever the story is around that, and changing it into an experience of true being that doesn't have anything to do with who we're related to, what our roles are, what our job is, who loves us, who doesn't love us, but really about getting in touch with that sense of what it is to be you, right? To really tune into, no one does it like me, not in an egotistical way, but in its uniqueness and the way that it brings life, the way that it's connected to life.
Let's see, we have a question for you. Is there a version of this that you can do when you're really stressed or in a stressful situation, but you can't get away to sit or lay down? Something you can do at work or during work?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can just focus for a moment and take a few breaths, you don't have to do it for 20 minutes, even 2 breaths. And doing something like a 6 count on the inhalation, 6 count on the exhalation. If you find that you're really spinning out, just take 2, 3 breaths, 6 seconds long on both the intake and the outtake. And you'll be amazed at how it can shift you out of that sense of, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I'm freaking out, and to just let go. And that's really crucial, is when you notice that you're caught up, to be willing to do something to let go.
Well, I have to ask you what you think about this, Halli, because I noticed by developing and making meditation a part of my everyday, it became like it's a crucial part of my practice. And I think when we first spoke, I told you that, I always tell people if I could only practice one thing, meditation would be it. But what do you think that, like for this question, for example, when we make the time to cultivate and develop a consistent practice for ourselves, that when we have those moments where we can't necessarily sit and close our eyes, it's easier for us to connect to that space after we've kind of, created a roadmap for ourselves or had the experience so much that it just becomes like a natural thing that we can click into. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. And the way I would describe it, I have a theater background, so I see meditation as a rehearsal. And then you come out to life, and that's the show. So you're practicing becoming non-reactive when you're sitting there with your thoughts, dropping the thoughts, anchoring back to the breath, right? And then you get into a stressful situation. Guess what? Curtains up, lights up, you're on, baby.
Right.
And that's when you are essentially tested, if you want to use that word. But you notice the trigger, and then you have something to connect to, right? To grab for. It's like a life raft in the great sea of chaos when that's happening.
I'm really glad you say it that way, because I think a lot of people see or think of meditation or these types of practices as something separate from their normal life, and not recognizing how much it's literally, you're reconditioning yourself and learning how to exist and experience being, and it goes beyond your sitting practice. So I'm really glad that you shared that.
Yeah. The idea is that I like that you use the word conditioning, because if we look at the science of it, with just 8 weeks, with taking pictures of the brain with the MRI, we see brain changes. So we know that meditation affects the neurology of the brain. And when you're building a new habit, a minimum of 21 days, right? On average, 28 days. So you're conditioning the brain to actually respond to stressful situations in a different way. So it is a productive habit rather than a lot of the addictive lifestyle habits that we can tend to do.
Totally.
right?
Yeah, and I have to say this too. I guess, now that we're having this conversation as well, I think that is the beauty of your work, from speaking with you before and even again now, that you are helping people to understand and see meditation differently than, what it may be thought of as, because a lot of us, a lot of people don't have an understanding of why, like, how would this work for me? I don't want to be a yogi. We have all of these different associations with it. So I think it's beautiful that your work shows how it really does apply to all of us and the benefits of it. So one of the things I want to ask you too, so that I don't forget, is when we are done with this, can you please put down in the comments the links and how people can contact you, how they can learn more about these programs, and all of those juicy details?
Of course, I'd be happy to.
Yeah. Any other questions? I just want to check in before we go. Anyone have any questions about meditation, about the experience we just had? Anything you want to share with Halli? I am very thankful for this. I feel so much better. There was something, I know what I wanted to also say. There was another thing that you said in the guidance about being watchful and curious. And I really liked that idea too. The idea of observing the self with curiosity rather than criticism, and really being curious about whatever it is we're experiencing, the external noise, the internal happenings, all of the process. So it's like these little key words that you used throughout that were very striking. I would say it that way.
Nice, nice.
Okay, we have another question for you. Is this meditation better as a morning meditation, evening, or both?
Okay, so what I'm going to say about that is meditation at any time of the day is going to be beneficial. One of the things that I think is really helpful about doing meditation in the morning is that you take care of yourself at the front end, and you essentially set a precedent for yourself for the day. So I remember before I had a meditation practice, waking up out of disturbed dreams and sleep, and then heading into the day from a foundation and a platform of disturbance.
Right.
And guess what? I would perpetuate disturbed experiences throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So if we look at ourselves as creators through our consciousness, why not start the day creating from a place of calm, centered presence and awareness, where you're in touch with who you are and maybe some sense of how you want your life to be. Maybe even you're connected to some idea of being a spiritual warrior. And so you start that first and then move into the day from that energy. So that's what I'll say. All meditation is good whenever, however. However, there, I think, is a particular advantage to doing it first thing in the morning. There's also something really wonderful about bookending the day with meditation. So finishing the day with meditation where you let the day go.
Yes.
So you start fresh and you end fresh.
I love that. And I will say I do both for two different reasons. I do notice a huge difference in my day when I start with meditation versus the days where I'm like, I don't have time and I think I'm going to do it later. Much different. And I do notice the difference. But I also like to, so I do it in the morning, just like you said. It's more of a way of like preparing my energy for really kind of sinking into like the frequency I want to be in, how I want to show up, how I want to experience the day, like kind of like choosing out an outfit. I'm choosing my energy for the day, right?
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, I do it just because. It's funny you say about the dreams. I do it more of like a grounding and release, so that I'm not going into my state of sleep with the noise of the day. So I try to mitigate that.
Yes. And I want to circle back around your comment about curiosity and criticism. So the difference between the two, so talking about an energy with which to go into a meditation, when we are in criticism, we've already made a conclusion, right? So there's a fixed energy.
Right.
And then curiosity is a feature of creativity. It's where we're open to see things in a new way, right? So that both of those ideas and those words are connected to very specific energies.
Yeah.
And most of us have plenty of criticism. Who needs more criticism? And especially as we get older, you know, we get stayed in our ways. This is this, that's that. This is how things are and how they have to be. But that, for a lot of us, causes suffering.
Right.
So the idea is we want to find a way through that so we can see things from a different perspective. So it's like getting off the dance floor and going to stand on the balcony for a while so you can just see what's really going on down there.
You know, Halli, I have to say, the meditation itself, I mean, was gorgeous. But even the information that you shared before and what you're sharing now after the fact, I think is so beneficial for people to hear. And again, I think it'll help people understand and consider meditation in a different way, especially people who may be curious about it or struggling with it, you know? So if you wouldn't mind, is it okay with you if I also share this recording on my Facebook page outside of the Seeker Circle? Because I just think it'll be very beneficial for people.
Yes, please, by all means, share it far and wide.
Okay. Good. So that everyone else can also get the benefits of this. Because I think, I mean, goodness, I'm like, gosh, this could have been a podcast. I mean, really beautiful information. And I thank you so much always, one, for being here tonight to guide us in this, but really also just for your contribution and how just, you know, beautiful you are and supportive you are with everyone in the group. So thank you so much, Halli.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It gives me joy. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, we have one last comment. I'm going to do this meditation every day from now on. Thank you, Halli.
Nice. I like it. Someone just got the bug.
Yes, yes, yes. It was a good one. So thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
please do share the links and information with all of us so that we can revisit.
I will do. Absolutely. Thank you, Yolanda. It's always nice to see you and nice to see all of you. Bye.
Okay, see you soon. Okay, so let me stop the recording. I am so thankful that Halli came to do this with all of us. Again, if you're listening to this in the recording, if you weren't here live, feel free to leave your comments and questions for Halli. She is very responsive, and I'm sure she will get back to you. So I hope that you all have a lovely night.